Mandalorian. Your ancestors wrote the great mythos.
We can all be Mandalorians here on BTBD, the network. We're streaming Star Wars Chapter 12. This is Season 2 of The Mandalorian. And it's a siege. Carl Weathers directing the episode. Everybody, welcome in to this live Star Wars conversation. David Amilati with you today. I'm joined with Arzu Amin. Arzu, how are we doing, ma'am?
This episode had a lot of good stuff. Oh, sorry, I was muted. This episode did a lot of good stuff, so I'm excited to dive in.
That's right. We got Shannon. Shannon, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
We're going to have a lot of fun in the next, who knows, 35, 40 minutes. We're talking about this great story, about 40-minute long episode. It's always kind of interesting to see how these episodes fluctuate in length. Before we get started, just wanted to let you know, if this is your first time checking out streaming Star Wars, this is an ongoing series that we do here on the Beyond the Blast Doors network. You see people like Arzu and Shannon and myself, and sometimes Pete, Andy, and Josh. We all dive in here and we talk about content exclusive to Disney Plus and the Star Wars galaxy. We'll talk about the moments that made us feel the most emotion. We'll talk about our favorite Easter eggs and really the implications on what could unfold in the rest of this second season, maybe the series overall going into seasons 3, the rumored season 4, and quite possibly even the larger Star Wars galaxy, which really makes me think this episode sets up the last 4 episodes of this season are going to be insane, and we want you to be with us for this Star Wars conversation. We're going to get Arzu and Shannon's thoughts here in a minute on Baby Yoda, because the child has a lot of screen time this episode. But first, I want to shout out everyone that's joining us in the live chat right now, because we have Lost in Hyperspace Lane, Stormy T, Galanorian Saber, we have Andy, we have Nick, we have Matthew. Guys, do us a favor. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us. Go ahead and hit that share button. Let's get everybody into this Star Wars conversation, a safe place to talk. Mandalorian Season 2, Chapter 12, The Siege. Spoilers. It's going to be a fun conversation. And I mentioned it. Let's start right there. Shannon, can we just talk about the child having a lot of almost iconic moments in just this one episode alone?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I mean, I thought it, and I know a lot of other people thought it, that very much had like baby Groot kind of moments. I mean, we open up on a great, like, no, move the blue wire, not the red wire, no, do, back and forth. But unlike kind of like Rocket screaming at Groot, you had the Mandalorian, we had Din, who never raised his voice, which is kind of like, no, that one. And I think it's actually kind of cute as well. Kind of, it reminded me again, adding on to that father-son kind of relationship, that it's kind of like, okay, we have a flat tire, let's get out, let's kind of work on it together. So I don't know, I liked that a little bit kind of thing. And then of course, like the excited and then sicking up at the end was very baby Groot as well. But it's a comedic gag, and it works. And I know it had me and my better half laughing hysterically.
Arzu, what was your favorite moment between the baby? I keep saying Baby Yoda, but it really is the child trying to steal the classmates' macaroon. Do we call them macaroons in Star Wars? I'm not sure. Or was it maybe an earlier bit with the soup or the wire malfunction?
So, couple of things. I love the macaroon gag, because that's like the first time we really see him use the Force very explicitly in this season, and he's doing it to get some cookies, which, like, relatable. But what I loved about the wire gag, and I feel like a lot of teachers who are teaching remotely right now, teaching through Zoom, will really feel this, because I know I feel this with the kids I tutor. Is just going, no, don't do that. Take the other thing through something where you can't reach your student or the kid to sort of help them and hand them what they need, and you're just really counting on them to get the words that are coming out of your mouth. So I felt that on a very visceral, little too real level, with him trying to guide him even though he can't get to him. So that's what I liked about that bit.
I love that. I love that so much. We have a review on Beyond the Blast Doors right now. It's a full breakdown, actually, of this episode. What happens and our favorite Easter eggs written by Pete Fletzer of Around the Galaxy here on Beyond the Blast Doors Network. And I just want to read the opening of his plot summation because I just think, it's really going to set the tone for the next little bit of our conversation. Din Djarin's Razor Crest still showing signs of some serious damage after 2 missions. As much as he's eager to take the child to meet a mysterious Jedi named Ahsoka Tano, he knows a ship won't get him there, so he has to travel back to where it all started, Navarro. He is greeted cheerfully by Greef Karga and Cara Dune. Greef puts his best man on the job for repairing the ship. Well, I'm not sure if that was the best man to put on that job over the ship. I want to open up to you guys. Very quickly in this episode, we are back to Navarro. And did you guys get the impression that we got to dial down Greef Karga? He has some status now on the planet, and he's not very, it's on, hey, Mando! It's a little bit more subdued. Did you pick that up at all?
Yeah. He's
Definitely
comfortable in his authority now, so he doesn't need to be bigger than he is.
Yeah. Shanna, what do you think?
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, he was also a little more cheeky because he's talking to the child and things like that and kind of being like, oh, yes, he does think this. But I mean, it was still very Carl Weathers, but I don't know. I just really enjoyed him in this episode, very much so. Like, I know it was maybe he was directing too, so he could really, but he didn't have this boisterous, like you were saying, hello, Mando. It was just kind of like a, hey, yeah, I set up the place, but I don't know. I feel like he's kind of gotten into the character now, so Carl Weathers kind of knows he can expand a little bit more, and it doesn't feel as caricatured. Not that it was bad for season 1, but it felt, I don't know, it just felt more natural.
That's exactly how I would describe it. It was almost like Greef and Carl were both just more comfortable playing in this world. And Arzu, can we go back to a point that you were just mentioning? Can you talk about how a little bit more about, now Greef Karga on this planet has established himself kind of as the guy in charge?
Yeah, so they've really cleaned up Navarro, so it's not the sort of burnt out husk of a city anymore. There's, a bustling market, and there's a little schoolhouse where they plop Baby Yoda and just hope he knows how to read. It's become a community under Greef Karga's authority. So I think with that, he's not sort of running those backdoor deals in the cantina anymore. Now it's like he is openly in charge. He is openly running, above the board deals, and maybe feels more comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I was very happy because one of the things that I kept talking about, and I remember saying this on BTBD Live 2 weeks ago, was that I felt that this was going to be big because Carl Weathers directing, he's not known for his directing abilities. And so I'm really excited to see how this episode unfolds with him directing and how he would balance being behind the camera, but also being in front of the camera. I can't imagine it's easy to direct yourself. And I thought this episode was fun. I thought he handled it quite well. I found at moments that there was some pacing issues, but I think that's exacerbated by the fact that every episode, especially in the first season, we got in the habit of every episode changing the director. And so everyone kind of has a different internal clock when you're behind the camera. And when you get into the editing room, everyone kind of has a different beat. And there were some times where I thought, oh, I feel like that was like a hair too long held on that shot before that cut. But then there's some action sequences in this episode. And that's what surprised me the most, how much action was in this chapter of The Mandalorian. I thought the ravine chase with the speeder bikes and then the TIE fighters was executed flawlessly. Shannon, you work in this world of visual effects. Do you interpret that the same way?
Oh, I definitely it's funny because I have issues with the first part of the action sequence in the corridors. Like, one, why so many transitions? I understand, hey, we're playing homage to, the original Star Wars, but I mean, they could have been hard cuts. We did not need to have these soft wipes going this way, going that way. It just really was distracting. And I was just like, why? It's not needed. And then it just was, I felt like the corridor was in there just a bit too much, turning the corridors. But then once we got out of those corridors, because I get it, the volume, it's a very small set, so you can't really do scale like you can. But once we got out, it was great. And like that shot where the speeder bikes are going down the hill, I mean, we were going, oh, this is awesome. So, I mean, definitely. And of course, this, I also have to say, what really complements the visual effects is the sound effects. Like the sound design is just on par, and it just really helps because obviously a lot of things go hand in hand. But so no, the visual effects were great. Nothing really was that jarring, but it was just the corridor, the bloody corridor. I was just like, okay, we got it. We're cornering, Star Wars as its finest, shooting stormtroopers in a corridor. And it's just kind of like, okay. But no, I really like this. This was awesome. The coming down and yeah, that was just such a great shot. And I even liked that like some of the speeder bikes crashed. It wasn't like okay, yeah. I mean, there was consequence. I think that's a big thing. So
there was sloppy riding.
Yeah. But and it's my favorite sound effect in the whole like Star Wars universe. So I'm loving it with the speeder bikes and everything. I'm just like, yes.
I don't know how they flew through the forest moon of Endor with such ease and then just going off this cliff. I mean, I guess okay, I'm saying it out loud. They're going off a cliff. But I just felt like that terrain was not nearly as treacherous as that forest environment in Return of the Jedi. So that to me, that moment almost kind of played comically for me. But I'm right there with you. I love this speeder bike. There's that shot that I included in our VO for this episode of just how the speeder was tracking the Imperial transport that we obviously know our band of bounty hunters, rebels, whatever you want to call our crew that they hijack. It felt from like depth to framing. It felt exactly how they track in Return of the Jedi that scout trooper that shoots and actually is able to nick the speeder bike, obviously throwing, encouraging Luke to jump off. So I mean, I'm probably overthinking it, but I was like, man, if they did that intentionally, that's really cool. Of course, there's like a lot of moments in this episode that we're going to pull out as Easter eggs, and we'll get to that in just a short while. We've talked about Grief Karga. We've talked about Carl Weathers' ability to, I think, do an above I think he exceeded expectations with his directorial debut here on The Mandalorian. We can now go, I say, let's talk about Cara Dune, because she's now the Marshal. She's the one that's in charge of keeping the peace. And Arzu, kind of like you mentioned, kind of turned around Navarro. It was just kind of funny to see the changes. And I'm kind of curious about how much time has passed since the last time we were on Navarro. Her hair's a little bit longer. But how did you perceive Gina Carano? Because it seems like her character, Cara Dune, the focus was really showing a lot more of the physicality we thought we would see in season 1.
Right. So I don't know if I'm the best person to talk about this, but
let's focus on the character. Let's focus on the character.
That's the thing. I have a hard time separating the two. But I will say, to your point, Dave, that she was a lot more physical and a lot more sort of what I would expect of an MMA fighter. You saw that a lot more here, whereas in the first season, I don't even remember. She was just like walking around and shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it was a lot more like wrestling, a lot more like punching. So I guess I see how order was restored if that's the approach she's taking now, because sometimes it's necessary. You have to knock some heads together, right?
Yeah,
I'm not advocating violence. It's fine.
I don't know. The Jedi believed in aggressive negotiations. It just depended on who you asked. Here's my question, I guess, when I think about it, because they find a way of having Cara Dune around, but I don't feel, even when present, it's a significant role. I am interested, though, when we get to the end of this episode, the medallion that she is bestowed. Are we led to believe, is that do you guys know if that's a rebellion medal that maybe was to thank someone for their service? It wasn't a New Republic logo, I believe. I think that was a Rebel Alliance medallion. Did either one of you guys pick that up?
I was wondering this because it's also on the latest Funko Pop that I think came out week 2 of Mando Mondays or whatever. That's where I thought she was going to put it on, because it's on the Funko Pop. But no, I wonder if I kind of took it as kind of one of those, they had this conversation, and then, which I think that's the same pilot from the second episode. Yeah. Then, I took it as almost a thank you for your service kind of thing. And I don't know, I actually kind of liked that moment, because I like the character. And I really appreciated the physicality because like there's a move that Cara Dune does where it's like she rolls over, and I know that actress is literally doing that, and so I have an appreciation for that and things. So, but I think what I kind of liked also about that moment was it can now be a nice little okay. You know, it's like one of those. I took it as like that character is kind of contemplating, but yeah, that definitely with the little you see like the little red. I don't know if you can go back, but if you look at the red and white underneath of that kind of that's very reminiscent of American military. That so that's why I think it's a service medal, not like a badge or you know.
Well,
like
I don't know if you saw it. I want to pull it back up here because Gannon Patrick is in the show with us.
Use it. Like I know Andy's kidding in the chat, but that's what I thought it was like it's like his way of giving her a way to get in touch.
Oh, I never thought about that. That's actually a really good point too.
Right.
Well, Andy even made the joke in the live chat. He was leaving his card hoping she'd call.
Like I know that's a joke, but that's actually what I thought it was.
Little after hours session. Okay, so we got Gannon coming in here saying it's Rebel Alliance service medal by the look of it. Yeah, I was trying to look at it. I didn't know if that was a medallion that they maybe gave similar in the End of New Hope. I could be making that up.
Well, because it looks old too. Like that's not a New Republic thing because it'd be shinier.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah. So, attention to detail there. Yeah. Really good point.
I mean, even in the white kind of paint on the far right screen right side even looks like a little bit like it's come off. So yeah, that might even be like a Battle of Yavin service medal or something. You know, what Alex David is going to have this all covered and we're going to know like in a week.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious. I wonder if that's her medal. Like, I wonder if Cara Dune is like really well known from the Rebellion days. And I wonder if there was an effort before to bring her back. You know, there's a reason why she's left and she won't come back. So it'd be really interesting if we get to see this New Republic X-Wing fighter come back a few times, or at least maybe once more in this season. I don't know if it would fit the tone. I mean, the end of this episode sets up like the end of Clone Wars, where you just have to feel like the next 4 episodes are about to beat you over the head with deep lore, fast-paced action, deep story, character development, those things that we love and we understand we can't have to the same level every episode. We get burnt out, but I was happy with it. It was a chance to show that character to have some emotion and to reflect on the loss. Here's a dumb question though. Why would you ask, I was there around, Alderaan. Did you lose anybody? A whole damn planet. I lost a whole damn planet. What kind of question is that?
Because I actually said that. Alderaanians who weren't on planet. So he's like, on the off chance that your family wasn't there, let me just ask instead of assuming your family's dead.
Oh.
Like, or he's being polite. Like if he's just like, I'm sorry for your loss. She's like, well, you didn't ask me anything. But if he's like, did you lose anyone? Do you want to like let it out? Knowing full well her answer is probably going to be, I lost everyone and everything.
Yeah.
But
I heard that dialogue and I just was like, that's like when we're at the funeral and you're right by the body and then your mom doesn't know what to say. And so she's like, he looks really good. The guy's dead. I mean, maybe I'm talking about a personal aside now, but you know what I mean? I could relate to that moment. Now I don't know if they played it out in the show, like what I just described. And honestly, I think that was maybe one of the moments where I thought that I wish that camera would have been a little bit tighter, a little bit sooner on Gina to get the emotion on her face. I think it was kind of lost in that wide shot. Again, that's what I'm looking for when I go back on my second rewatch. When I watched this episode the first way through, I thought it was a blast. I thought, we got to Navarro. It kind of took a little while to get going. But once we get to this Imperial base that we think is for mining, it turns out to be a freaking cloning facility. And we got a wish granted here because both of our co-hosts today, or both of my co-hosts, I should say, wanted to see Dr. Pershing show back up. So Arzu, I'm going to ask you to go first. Talk to me about how does this work out? We get the holo message and we find out like 3 days ago they're working actively in this facility.
So I was very excited. First of all, just because I've been rooting for Dr. Pershing since season 1, so I'm happy he's back. I also like that we got a drop of we got to drop the term M count. So midi-chlorians are coming back, which is good because it's part of the story. Like it or not, it is part of the story. So those are coming back, and they've given it like a scientific angle to sort of gloss over the fact that they are experimenting on living beings. And sort of, yeah, so a lot of people's guesses from season 1 that he's involved in cloning because of the Camino patch on his jacket are now all but confirmed. Like they've done everything but say it explicitly. So I like that that's now tying back more into the prequels. So not only with midichlorians, but with Camino, with the cloning. So as a prequel kid, that was a delight.
It was freaking amazing. That's what it was. I was so happy. I like will slap my face in the. I was trying to say I'll slap myself in the face to calm me down, but that didn't even come right because I'm so damn jacked. I love this conversation I had with my buddy David at least once a year, and we sit down. It's like, if you could retell the prequels differently, how would you do it? And I just would love for the prequel trilogy to actually start at like about 20 minutes into Attack of the Clones or wherever, when Kenobi's flying down to Camino and he just uncovers the Grand Army of the Republic that's been made for the last decade. What if that was how the freaking prequel trilogy started? And then it's like the suspense thriller around like this cloning facility and who's Cypher Diaz and Jango Fett. Anyways, I'm getting a little sidetracked, but like the fact that we get to play in that world a little bit more with through Dr. Pershing, and like I can't make out those creatures that were in the test tubes. Could you identify? Do you think that was the start of the Galanorian saber? Is this the beginning of the Snoke program? Do we think that's possible?
I don't know. All I know is I now have like an appreciation of the prequels since like talking to like Arzu and other people. And so when I saw the patch, I was like, okay, it's not just one. Because it's like, oh, I thought maybe Dr. Pershing holding on to a sense of duty or purpose was the only one, but now we have 2 others. And I'm going to have to go through and freeze frame it because they showed the screen that they shoot. And I've noticed from other kind of Easter egg videos and things that the Arabesh actually isn't just gibberish. Like it says actual things. They know we do this. So they put the details in there. So I'm curious what they shot. But I was thinking that I was looking and I was like, okay, this kind of looks like a Snoke figure, but I'm not sure. It's interesting they used the terminology. I think they said like volunteer or something. And I like they said M count, having medical in my family, I'm kind of like, yeah, that makes it a little more tasteable instead of midichlorians, and well, it's very, to the Jedi, it's very mystic, to where the Empire, it's a thing. It's like, oh, so it's just like, it's a purpose, an M count.
Yeah,
exactly. So
I think it's really interesting. I think it's interesting the Galanorian goes the Snoke program. We got, there's 2 other ideas out there. And this was a conversation that I had with Andy just before the show. And it takes me to this scene. First, I thought that these might be shadow troopers. These are troopers that were introduced, I believe it was Dark Forces, a LucasArts game in the 90s. Which conveniently, we talked to John Knowles, who's the game developer for that game, on BTBD Live this past week. You can check that out right now on the Beyond the Blast Doors Network. Shameless plug. But the point here that I'm trying to make is we're seeing this, I don't know, army, but these troops made the black armor, the tubes connected. Andy and I were talking about, are we making Vader clones? And we need the child, because again, that's the crux of this. Dr. Pershing's trying to keep the child alive. I think that Dr. Pershing cares for the child too. To power these beings, do you have to have a being give its DNA, give of its blood that has a high midichlorian count in order to power, bring to life these clones? If it's not Vader clones and there's Snoke clones, I don't think that's realistic. I think because the tubes of the creatures are in one room, you go in the next, or well, I guess technically these troopers are on the ship. I guess that's the theory though, is it could be Vader clones and they need a force sensitive creature to supply life, to supply blood, DNA, to appropriately allow those troops to function. Now, if it's not Vader, maybe it is just a superpowered trooper. But the new era is referenced here, and I think it's interesting to find out what is the new era. Are we prepping for the new order? Is there some connection here? I'm curious to see how that unfolds. But that was the conversation that Andy and I had, and we thought that was pretty cool. If it was the Shadow Troopers from the game, I think that would be super fantastic, but it wouldn't necessarily link then to why we need a child. Why would we prefer him captured alive? I guess we think, I don't know. Do we know the sex of the child? I don't think that's important. But that was just a theory we talked about.
They keep saying he.
Huh?
They say he.
Oh, they do say he? Okay, cool. Well, great.
Like Dr. Pershing says he, so I'm going with the doctor on this.
Oh, okay, good.
Always trust the doctor, especially when they say wear a mask. Okay, so Andre says they probably are cyborgs. Who knows?
I wondered this. I wondered this because I was looking, like, when they pulled out, I was literally sitting on the couch and I was like getting closer to the screen to try to make out. I might have to I'm that person that will bring up the brightness to see. But the way they almost looked a little Cylon, kind of. But I'm almost wondering if they're like robotic, because isn't this no, Operation Cinder? When is Operation Cinder? Ours?
It's happened.
Oh, it's happened. Okay, so it's not Operation Cinder.
It was before Jakku, so
okay,
that was a few years ago.
Okay, so yeah, but I mean, I was even wondering that, but if you look behind this shot right here, there's people hazmat looking suits, and I'm wondering if it's a cyborg kind of weird thing. I mean, we're gonna go really off the deep end here, but they need a midichlorian count for something. So if they just needed to clone anybody, I don't think they'd need that. So I think they are trying to clone someone specific, or they need to have some. I never even thought about Vader, because I guess Vader's gone.
It's possible. Well. Arzu, do you think it would be a mistake if they were to reintroduce midichlorians in this series? It is something that's been pretty controversial.
I don't think so. I think it would actually help tie things together, because going forward to the sequel trilogy, now we know that Palpatine was cloning, and his son dad was not force sensitive. So clearly there's something in there to the importance of how force sensitivity carries over in clones. So if it is something like midichlorians, something tangible, that would go a long way to explaining that nonsense. So I hope that they do bring midichlorians back, because then that would make sense. That's also why I don't think those clones are Snoke, because they're not using Palpatine, and I was sort of under the impression that if that's the route, then Snoke is powered by Palpatine's midichlorians, because
right there. Well, and so also the fact that he's
setting up the groundwork for the same program that Palpatine will then use in the future.
That's
right, and also that we think that a lot of the cloning for Snoke happens on Exegol. I think that's what we're led to believe.
Jar of pickled Snokes.
I'm sorry.
Jar of pickled Snokes sitting by.
Yeah, they're fermenting.
I will say, sorry to interject.
Go ahead.
As someone who did not like the midichlorian aspect, this is actually really helping me be absolutely on board with it. Because I think actually when I go back to it, what did I have the biggest issue with midichlorians? It actually wasn't midichlorians and that concept. It was the Immaculate Conception that I always had an issue with. So actually, I'm kind of happy that this is coming back, has a bit more of a tangible science to it, because I'm all about the fantasy, but with a little kind of realism in there. So this is actually helping me, who was very, oh my God, midichlorians, really? But when I heard the M counts and things, I was totally on board and was like, actually, yes, you've converted me. And if you can get this in a really cool, and I trust the, Favreau and Filoni, and they've got their fingers in all the different pies, that I think they'll find that right balance. And I'm all for it.
I think you're right. I love that we got Ken back as a freaking X-Wing pilot this episode. Made me so happy. Listen, we could talk on and on. I love that ship too. The fact that we got an Imperial Light cruiser that Moff Gideon is rolling on. I love seeing that in live action. That was freaking gorgeous. I think it's time to dive down into Easter eggs, friends, because we're at the 29-minute mark already on the show. That's just, it was funny. We were talking about this episode, and I mentioned my pacing concerns, but overall I enjoyed it. Arzu and Shannon, we're all kind of mixed on certain parts of this chapter, but you know what? It seems like we found plenty to talk about that we enjoyed. And the little nitpicky things that we found that not a big deal overall. I think that when, again, we get this whole second season lined up and we can binge it, I just think that the story is going to unfold beautifully. Yeah. I'm really excited to experience what that is. Real quick, I want to shout out our friends in the live chat, because the conversation here is just awesome. Here's an example. Canon Junkie is in here. According to the Star Wars book, Palpatine has been working on his clones and cheating death since right after Revenge of the Sith. Whoa. Oh, I mean,
Gary, which book?
maybe Palpy's involved. We don't know. Here we go. We have Just a Little Podcast. Hey, it was a great episode. Podcast of the Will saying, also new hot take. We get Palps before the season ends. Hollow message or something similar, giving instructions about what we do, which would be very similar to what we got in Battlefront 2 campaign, which would, I think, be welcomed. Learning about Operation Cinder. I think that would be very fascinating. Not maybe about that specific project, but, to see another recording left behind by Emperor Palpatine. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Man, there is just a lot of great conversation happening in the live chat. We love having the Star Wars conversation with you. Before we go on, real quick, onto the Easter eggs, just want to shout out the Hyper Toy Drive happening right now for the Beyond the Blast Doors Network, November 16th through December 4th. You can go to beyondtheblastdoors.com/toy drive to learn more. Essentially what's happening is Toys for Tots is struggling to collect donations this holiday season for kids in need because of the ongoing pandemic. And so Pete had the idea, was like, we should really do a toy drive. And very quickly it grew into an effort from 12 different content creators. So you have the shows here on the network that you're familiar with, Around the Galaxy, BTBD Live, Bombad Cast, Hollow Chronicles. But we're joined with Idiot's Array, Kanata's Castle, Kessel Run Transmissions, The Sith List, Star Wars Explained, Steel Wars, Tarkin's Top Shelf, Tatooine Sons rounds out that 12. It's really simple to do. We encourage you to do this. And when you're like, well, how simple is it really? I want to bring the girls back on so that way we can tell you on camera just how simple it is. It really does involve just going to our website, beyondtheblastdoors.com. You'll see the logo of the toy drive at the top. When you click on that, it's going to give you a little further explanation about why Toys for Tots. And then where there's a donate link, you just go on Amazon.com with that link. It'll take you to the wish list that we have all assembled. And there's 20 to 40 different items that you can select. And there's some that are $5, some that are $50. It's whatever you're willing to give. We kind of wanted to give the spectrum. I put on some comic books, and so sending a couple trades to kids this holiday season. So be sure you check that out. But one more time, it's the Hyper Toy Drive for Toys for Tots. All the toys collected will go to our P.O. box. We'll distribute them in the New Jersey area. Kind of hard to do it anywhere else. So we thought that if we do the Hyper Toy Drive multiple times, if it's really successful, maybe we can rotate that where we're all based out of. So maybe we're doing this sometime in the UK, or maybe we're doing the collection in Canada, or sometimes maybe we're doing the collection in Seattle. There's really no limit. Just really proud of the collaboration effort here between all these content creators here on your screen. Okay. God, that was the pitch. I hope I did Pete proud. He does a really nice job of promoting that. There's also a trailer you can find on our social media accounts that Shannon made, and it's really top notch and a great testimony. In fact, I think we have that, and we'll play that maybe later in the show. So let's go ahead and transition now to our Easter eggs in this episode. Fam, there's a lot of them to dive into, and I know what you're all thinking. The baby loves soup. No, that's probably not the Easter egg that you like the most in this episode. I went to Arzu first the last time, I think. So Shannon, let's start with you. I want the one Easter egg in this episode that made you go, wow, that was awesome.
I don't know about wow, but one of a wow, I am a geek was when the protocol droid is teaching in the classroom. And it turns after everyone's kind of she's settle down, class. She mentions the word just literally left, the solo one, Maelstrom. She says the Arcades Maelstrom. However, the protocol droid, she, because the voice sounded like a she, but anyway, but she pronounced it different, which I thought was also almost like a double thing, because as we know, Lando pronounces Han instead of Han. So is he saying the Arcades Maelstrom wrong? But I'm almost positive they're referencing the same thing, because earlier she said about mining routes. So I'm not 100% sure. I've only seen it once, but that would be nice if it's a little solo reference, because it didn't go anywhere. Kessel didn't blow up, so it's still there. But
I think a lot of people are on the same track as you. I think it's a safe assumption at this point that they are referencing Kessel, which I thought was a really nice little detail. I'm glad that there's people catching that. I'm just like you, Shannon. The fact that this protocol droid is up there, they're listing real Star Wars locations. We've heard, the fact that they said Coruscant, I mean, that just, that made me happy. It was a little, it's like seasoning on a steak, right? Like the steak's good on its own, but when you have that little extra flavor on it, and chef's kiss. Arzu, what's a Easter egg from chapter 12, The Siege, that has you very happy on this Friday?
Okay, so I am notorious for not noticing music in TV shows. It just goes right over my head. But when they're in the lab and they're right in front of the tank, the music, like once I'm like, why is this so familiar? And then, it has to be spelled out for me that part of it sounds like the voices in the Opera House theme from like, and sort of in Snoke's theme too. And then you hear Kylo Ren's theme sort of adapted into the thing. And because I'm notorious for making anything and everything about Kylo Ren, that just kind of made me, I'm like, oh my God, I know this song. So I like the one music cue I did notice is my favorite Easter egg.
I think Ludwig, I should say, needs to get a lot of credit, because I feel the score of season 2 elevated so drastically. And it's interesting. It's like it's maturing like the Mandalorian is with the child. I don't know if that's the intended, way we're supposed to feel, but it was, a lot of that woodwind vibe in season 1, but we're getting like almost like this like rock hard, like really good beat through these episodes. And it's incredible how this catalog within the series is really expanding. And it's probably why the guy's won an Emmy or 2 for his composing, not just with The Mandalorian, but other movies, Black Panther. That was good too. I really liked, I don't know if this is one that a lot of folks would have caught, but early on, Aqualish had taken over the armorer's lair where she crafted the best car, where we last saw her. The Aqualish are the ones that appeared in A New Hope. Well, like Ponda Baba. That's probably the most popular one when his buddy loses an arm to Obi-Wan. But I thought that was cool, and it got me really excited, because I thought we were going to see the armorer come around the corner, but I'm like, no, she gone. They wouldn't be there if she was still there. But I really appreciated that one. Were there any other moments? Let's stick to one at a time. But Shannon, was there another reveal that you thought was just chef's kiss deserving?
I really liked not even just the Razor Crest shooting the TIE fighters down. I love that, like, he must have the stomach of steel, because I love that the Razor Crest, he does a lot of these, like, kill the engine, let it fall kind of things, and he did that. And the sound effects after he gets rid of the first TIE fighter, and then he's going for, like, he basically shifts thrusts and makes the ship go like this, that I love just the sound effect. It almost sounded a little bit Iron Man-y, but, like, just the way the engines kind of kick back in and he's like spiraling towards the TIE fighter. Like I love that. It's like, oh, he actually is a really good pilot. Like he can really hold his own kind of thing. And it's kind of good to see the Razor Crest not falling apart in pieces anymore. Kind of thing.
I was trying to bring it up for you and it kind of timed out for some reason. It's lagging here. Let's see if I can bring it up. All right, well, it's clipping, but this was the shot that I thought was so fun, was how he was going straight up, tacking down this TIE fighter, and then he reverses his engines, and he takes out this. I just thought the whole sequence, like, it really worked well. It made me smile. And that's that kind of shot, the framing of that is something that we're seeing more and more in Star Wars. I think that it was included in the special editions for the original trilogy, but we get a lot of this side perspective in Rogue One. You get some in Solo. You get a shot of it, I believe, in Force Awakens when they're trying to do that trench run. So it's this new perspective that we're getting with ships in Star Wars visually that I think it's really cool. It's just different, and it's nice to see a new method or a new characteristic become part of the tradition. I think that worked really well. Arzu, let's bring you up again. Is there another Easter egg, something that you thought that really we should be spending a lot more time talking about?
So Mando's on the ship with the baby in the soup, and he's like starting to ease his helmet off. Not all the way, but so he's sort of maybe questioning, did he grow up in a, and like I think that's really gotten to him, like what Bo-Katan said, because we haven't seen him do that before. Like he wouldn't even take his helmet off in front of Baby Yoda before, but now he's kind of like easing it off his head, so maybe he's like trying to push himself outside his comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like there's not a lot to say about that in this episode specifically, but the implications for that for the rest of the season, I'm very interested in.
I agree, because you definitely see Baby Yoda kind of going, "Hey, what's under there?" Kind of, so he's
Almost
obviously
like he didn't realize there's a face down there.
Yeah, and so he's very curious and is kind of looking. But the detail again with the sound design, you hear that engage and disengage, and I noticed this in the previous episode when Bo-Katan took her helmet off. It's the same sound effect actually as Kylo Ren. So it's that like it's almost like it decompresses and compresses like air, kind of like a.
Yeah.
I make myself cough. But,
Are you okay? I can't get to England anytime soon, sister. You need to slow it down.
Right,
If
I
you
was
stroke
just
out on the
embarrassed
show.
myself right there on live. But yeah, anyway, trying to
funny.
demonstrate taking the helmet off and on. But yeah.
We're just that excited about it that it literally this episode took Shannon's breath away.
There you go.
I thought the macaroons were cool in this episode. I like that we have our mithril friend back, and that he's serving out indentured servitude for 300 years, 200 if he completes the task right. I really liked seeing the when they're in the base and he has to jump out onto the guardrail he has to step out onto the platform that we remember from A New Hope, the tractor beam, and he has to go and mess with it. I thought that was a great callback, hearkening to A New Hope. The fact that he's like, there's no guardrail. And I was just like, that is prime comedy in Star Wars. It's not a yo mama joke. It's situational humor, and it's a callback to a joke that has been made since 1977. The Empire likes to build these huge, hollow structures, and there is no use of railings. I mean, there is a Kyber-fueled laser about to destroy Alderaan, and there's two guys out there smoking J's. It's like, what's going on here? We should have some safety protocol for the Empire. I digress. I'm trying to think. There are so many.
I have one
moments.
more.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I actually liked they took because like I used to want to be in the 501st and the Imperial officers. They have these cylinders, but it's never really explained what these cylinders do in these uniforms, and
Yes.
they outright were showing it on screen. Maybe it's been said in the books. Arzu, you will have to help me out. But like showing in screen how it's almost like an extra security protocol. Like if you have these, I think it was called a code cylinder or something, you're able to get through doors. And I was so happy. I was just like, oh, that's what that does. And to see it be used, it's like, okay, it's not just a funny little greebly. It's an actual functioning. There's a reason why it's on there, kind of thing. I don't know. That just maybe because again, looking at old CRLs and things like that, but I was just like, oh, that's what that does. So yeah.
No, I loved it. And, I'm a big Imperial tech guy. So like, I really enjoyed seeing that Imperial light cruiser show up. I thought it was interesting. The Mithril talking about like carbon sickness, referencing being in frozen carbonite. I thought that was like that they would have some kind of understanding of what that experience was like frozen. Cause I didn't think that was a thing. Or maybe he was just still feeling the effects of the sickness, which is what we've alluded to in this conversation already. I had a blast watching this chapter, and I think before we wrap things up here on streaming Star Wars, I think we got to talk about what's next. Clearly, the stage is set. The Razor Crest has been repaired, and we are going to Corvus, and we're going to go find Ahsoka Tano. And sitting here in this moment, how does that land with you, Arzu, that a character that we saw make her debut in the Star Wars galaxy in 2008, now in 2020 will receive her live action debut?
I'm really excited for Ahsoka because I love Ahsoka as a character, and I think she plays such an instrumental role in the galaxy, like within animation. Like a lot of fans know who she is, but she's not sort of known to the live action only crowd, who might see, however, that she features on a lot of merchandise and she always sort of pops up when you talk about Star Wars. So it'll be nice to sort of bridge that for other people. So for her to become more widely recognized within the fandom, and like not the fandom who are like dialed in all the time, but for Star Wars viewers who don't know who she is, who maybe didn't watch the animation.
No, I'm right there with you. I think that's so great. I was one of those guys who rolled their eyes with Ahsoka at first because it was like, oh, snips. And I was like, well, they seem pretty committed to this character, so let's stay with it. And you know, you don't have to wait that long in Clone Wars to find out the depths of this character and what she brings out in the characters around her, like an Obi-Wan or like an Anakin. And so I'm really excited because we're getting an Ahsoka that is post Clone Wars, post Rebels. This is going to be a mature, I would say, like elegant Ahsoka Tano, a lot of experience. That Ahsoka the Grey, you know, and that's what I think we're going to get. I hope we're going to get next week. Shannon, when you think about this episode, it really feels the conclusion of it where we're in the cloning facility. We learn that Gideon is up to cloning something for the next era. We know that the Mandalorian is being tracked by this Imperial faction. I don't know. Do you think that Moff Gideon knows that the Mando is actually leading him to Ahsoka Tano?
I don't know, actually, because again, I'm probably the only person on here that I kind of watched the last season of Clone Wars, but I know kind of bits and things. So I think it's going to be kind of like oh, okay, this is going to work out just great. And kind of almost like our protagonist being like, oh crap, we just kind of played into it kind of thing.
Yep.
But it's funny. I always kind of like when Bo-Katan came on last week and when Ahsoka Tano comes on, be it next week or whenever, I always go to my parents. My parents love The Mandalorian, especially my father, but they know nothing. They literally know the films. That's all they know. And I love bouncing off of them. What do you understand? Like, how did you take that? Because like my mom was like, oh, I don't know. Bo-Katan might not be, I don't know. She seems like a bad guy, but I can't tell if she's a good guy or a bad guy. So it's great. It's a breath of fresh air because I'm in this very, tight bubble. I know all the ins and outs, so it's kind of interesting to see.
Right.
So I think it'll be interesting to see how it's played on the show because they're going to have to tap into that, people like us who know all the backstory and then people like my parents who don't. And I really think I think I would even lose my mind if we see Ahsoka, I believe Ahsoka the Grey is where she's got the white hood and the cane. Can you imagine if we saw the owl creature first? I don't know what it's called. I'm really sorry. Chat is probably like, yeah, it's called
wait, we have a resident canon junkie. Ours do?
It's called the Convor.
Okay. Can you imagine if we saw that in live action? We saw the Loth Cat last year in live action. Can you imagine if we saw that and Baby Yoda sees that and then I don't know. But I'm also very hesitant because I know there's been so much build up to this. I'm scared our expectations are so high that we're going to be like, oh, is that it? Is that all she said? Or we don't see her fight. Or, you know,
I don't think
mean?
so. When you have a Dave Filoni directing the episode, I think that we need to have some confidence. He's directed 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. He's going to get his 3rd rep here with giving Ahsoka her live action debut. They have this story thought out. I think it's evident in the story that they've already told. And I think that there should be a lot of excitement. I don't want to let my mind go crazy and think about what could or could not happen. But what is going to make people lose their mind, and this is not to be disrespectful to anything you said, Shannon, but literally when Ahsoka Tano pops up on screen, the world will melt. Twitter will shut down. It'll be like the scene from Indiana Jones. People will melt. You'll see their skin fade, the blood, the bone to ash, the whole thing. It'll happen. And it's going to be, I hope it's a moment that we're all like, oh, I kind of remember staying up late to watch that episode live as soon as it dropped. And like, I remember that shared experience. Like, I think it's going to be like a big full circle moment for Star Wars fans, which is really exciting. Blue Harvest Toys thinks that she won't pop up until the end of the episode. I doubt it. I really do doubt it. I think that, I think they're going to, I think we're going to spend some time with Ahsoka next week. I can't imagine you're going to give Dave Filoni a chance to direct that episode and she just, turn around and reveal her hood. If that's what happens, maybe so. Maybe that's why you see Jon Favreau directing a lot of the episodes here on the back end of season 2. We'll find out. But it seems like we're on the track to Corvus. We are going to find Ahsoka Tano. The rumor is the episode title, the chapter title for this will be The Jedi. So chapter 13, The Jedi. That is the rumor. That is a new rumor, not the rumor we told you 2 months ago where the titles were up. They were false. They were incorrect. Let's go down in the live chat real quick before we blast out of here. We have everyone having a great time. Looks like Pete's with us on it around the galaxy. I want to see Ahsoka holding the child. Yes. Oh my God. Can you imagine like some kind of like interaction of like, oh hey, they're cute. I mean, like Ahsoka would know. I mean, it wouldn't be like Snips quality, but it'd be pretty cute. We have Andy saying, will she still only have one saber? That's fascinating. I think she might have two. Oh, what do you think, Arzu? I feel like this is a question for you because how does this line up with the timeline? Because didn't she have two sabers in Star Wars Rebels?
I feel
the
like
two white sabers.
Two white sabers. That's why I'm like, did I miss the bit where she lost one of them? That's what I'm trying to remember now. I feel like the chat.
Blue Harvest says, I'm no Jedi, and all remaining systems says, I'm so hyped for this next episode. And yeah, we have some confirmation here that she did have two sabers, two white sabers. Yeah, everyone's coming in now. Canon Junkie. Patrick, he knows his stuff too. He's up to snuff. Yeah, two white sabers. So I think ultimately what we're going to get here is we're going to get Ahsoka Tano dueling with Moff Gideon with the dark saber. That is my one want. I don't know if we'll get it, but I feel that's where we're heading to. That's the end. Streaming Star Wars episode. We don't have an episode. It's the fact that we just get on here every Friday and talk about The Mandalorian or whatever the hell's on streaming Star Wars. That's, well, Disney Plus that's streaming Star Wars. My brain is still trying to shift. I thought this chapter was absolutely fantastic. I'm really damn happy about it. Shannon, is there anything else that you want to throw out there before we wrap up the show?
No, I'm excited but hesitant because again, as people are saying, I don't really follow the cartoons or not the cartoons, excuse me, the animations and things. I think they're sprinkling in. We're starting to learn about the new, the First Order first, but it was called like the New Era and things. I just want Mandalorian to also kind of still be its own thing. I'm all for kind of characters dipping in and out. I don't want it to turn into, let's now make it a live action with all these Rebels and Clone Wars characters and we forget about Din Djarin and things. But I want to be wrong, and yeah.
It kind of does feel like
still excited.
It feels like they're building a larger story here. I think we're seeing multiple series. I honestly think that there's an MCU type of world being developed for Star Wars on Disney Plus. I think there's a certain reason why Jon Favreau is so heavily involved in this. And I think it's more than what maybe a lot of us thought when The Mandalorian was originally announced. I was going to share a comment, but I'm not going to do that. I want to go to Arzu next. Arzu, before we get out of here, is there anything important, anything special you want to shout out before we get out of here?
Yeah, so there's one thing I want to mention. There is a fundraiser put together by some wonderful members of the Star Wars community called Trans Rights or Human Rights. This is the way. And because today is Trans Day of Remembrance, they've put the two together and they are asking people to donate, if you are able, $12 in honor of Chapter 12. So that link is going to be on my Twitter, just pinned to the top if you want more information.
Wonderful, Arzu. Thank you so much for bringing awareness about that. I think that, we like to talk Star Wars. Sometimes people in our Star Wars community gets impacted by certain things. And I think it's just always important that we make sure that everyone has a voice at the table. And I love how that this is kind of tied into The Mandalorian. And so hopefully that if anyone wants to support that cause, please feel free to do so. You can always follow Shannon, Arzu, myself on Twitter. We're all there, part of the Beyond the Blast Doors network. You can find us and continue the Star Wars conversation. A big thanks to everyone in the live chat because they have been having a great time. It's there's a show happening here, and then there's this spin-off show that's happening in the live chat because they're all firing their ideas, and we try and shout out as many people as we can during the show, whether we're able to call you out or just bring you up on screen. We're so thankful that you're part of our Star Wars conversation. Because of time, we ran long. I pitched this new take on streaming stars as like, hey, everyone will rotate out. We'll go 35 minutes. I don't think we've done less than 47 minutes for a streaming Star Wars.
Sorry,
episode. But that's okay. That's okay. I do want to just say thank you again to everyone. We'll be back here next Friday. There is been a few requests made for a live watch party for The Mandalorian. We are talking about possibly doing that for this coming episode. So next Friday, where we believe we'll see Lady Tano on screen in her live action debut. There is talk about it that's not confirmed. You can let us know what you think about that idea by commenting in the comment section of this video. If this is your first time with us here at Beyond the Blast Doors, or you're back because you like our Star Wars conversation, thank you so much. Be sure you give this video a thumbs up, hit that bell so that way you know that the next time we go live to talk Mandalorian, for example, or any of our other shows or videos go online, you are the first to know. We are going to step aside, and you enjoy the rest of your Friday. Continue talking to us on Twitter, on social media at BTBDNet. Also, check out that awesome in-depth breakdown that Mr. Pete Fletcher dropped for us on BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. May the Force be with you.
I am Bo-Katan, Clan Kryze. I was born on Mandalorian plot in Return. I am the last of my line.